US airstrikes on Iran, on the table. But what does this mean in the current global climate? And how does this decision fit into a much larger puzzle? While these words sound like the prelude to military escalation, the reality might be more complex than we think. President Donald Trump's administration recently confirmed that airstrikes on Iran are a real possibility. Yet, what's behind this statement, and why is it coming out now? The protests in Iran are still ongoing, claiming lives and drawing intense global attention. But are airstrikes really on the horizon? Or is this another piece of a much broader strategy? Let's break this down and look at what might happen next. The announcement from the White House that military airstrikes are on the table has sent ripples through international circles. But why now? The protests in Iran have been intensifying over the past few weeks, and according to reports, hundreds of Iranians have lost their lives in the clashes. The international community has raised concerns, particularly about human rights violations. Yet, despite the gravity of the situation, President Trump's administration has consistently maintained that diplomacy remains the preferred option. So, is military action actually under serious consideration, or is it simply part of a broader diplomatic message? This is one of the most crucial questions at the moment. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, when discussing the issue, emphasized that while airstrikes are an option, they are far from the first choice. She mentioned, diplomacy is always the first option for the president. In fact, she underscored that Trump is known for keeping all of his options on the table, with military action being just one possible move. This is not the first time that military action has been suggested as a potential response. In fact, President Trump has previously indicated that the US would intervene if Iranian authorities targeted peaceful protesters. The question is, how far is the US willing to go in its response? The ambiguity here is essential. It signals that while action may be possible, there is still an effort to gauge the situation carefully and to use diplomatic channels to try and prevent further escalation. President Trump's administration is known for a flexible approach, that is, using a variety of diplomatic and military tools based on real-time developments. While airstrikes may be an option, they represent just one piece of a much larger strategic calculation. But what other options are on the table? Recent reports suggest that the military is exploring a range of responses to the violence in Iran, but there is no official confirmation about any immediate plans for action. The focus seems to be on preserving stability in the region and preventing further loss of life. At the same time, the US is carefully watching how other countries, both allies and adversaries, react to these developments. This dynamic will play a significant role in shaping US decision-making. While the US has made its stance clear, it's crucial to understand how Iran is responding to these developments. So far, Iranian officials have made it clear they will not be intimidated by external threats, especially from a country that has historically had tense relations with Iran. Moreover, the US is not the only player in this situation. Iran has close ties with several nations that could either mediate or escalate tensions in the region. What does this mean for the potential use of airstrikes? The balance of power in the region, combined with the ever-watchful international community, means that any military action, if it comes, will not be an isolated event. It will have global repercussions, making it unlikely that any decision will be made lightly. The United Nations, along with other international bodies, has voiced concern over the ongoing protests in Iran. The key focus is human rights, and global pressure could influence Tehran's response to both domestic unrest and international calls for reform. As we've seen in the past, the US has often been involved in pushing for international action through these channels. The question arises, will diplomatic pressure, coupled with strategic positioning, prevent a military option from being exercised? Or will we see a shift in US policy as the situation escalates? While the possibility of US airstrikes on Iran remains just one of many options on the table, it's clear that the situation in Iran is rapidly evolving. In the coming weeks, we will likely see further developments that could either steer the situation toward peaceful resolution or push it toward greater military involvement. The real question is, how will global diplomacy manage the escalating crisis? Can international pressure stop further violence, or will military intervention become the unavoidable course? If you want to dive deeper into this issue and explore the possible outcomes and strategic calculations behind these decisions, make sure to stay tuned for our next video. We'll be taking a closer look at how international alliances could either stabilize or further complicate the situation in the Middle East. Until then, keep following the latest updates, and let's continue to unpack the global ramifications of these crucial decisions together. If you found this breakdown insightful, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can stay up to date on the latest developments as we continue following this unfolding story. We'll see you in the next video.